There is no mistaking we live in uncertain times. The economy could be facing a crash, and as every year since 2008 passes us by, the question remains: how long can the Federal Reserve keep printing money without consequence? Of course, there are real-life consequences right now, from higher prices to the inflated value of Wall Street at the expense of Main Street. And as we pointed out in our video, Canada is being set up to fail. The problem comes to the fact that central banks have the power to print money without any checks and balances. So it's just a matter of time until the crash occurs. Nothing was fixed in 2008. In fact, the bursting of America's housing bubble was the result of papering over the dot-com crash from the early 2000s. And in response to the housing bubble, the Federal Reserve inflated the bond market. Now it's the US dollar that's in a bubble, and how this ends is anybody's guess. 2008 was a minor correction compared to what's coming ahead. And unlike corporate state media outlets that blame the free market, or Brexit, or the Chinese, the fault rests with the US Federal Reserve. The fact is, interest rates are the intersecting point between supply and demand for loans. If interest rates were this low in a free market, that would indicate a large pool of savings used to finance all these capital projects. But that's not what's happening here. People are not reducing their spending and saving for the future. People are consuming in the here and now. All the while, producers are working on capital projects that require the savings that just don't exist. Eventually, prices will reveal the lack of funds necessary to continue this so-called prosperous economy. How this translates into the real world is anybody's guess, but the most likely scenario, at least here in Canada, is a housing crash. We avoided the worst of the recession in 2008, but not for the reasons given by the corporate state media. We do not have a stable banking sector, and we have not avoided giving mortgages to people who can't possibly pay them back. The Canadian establishment mimicked the rest of the world. We papered over the problems, and we kicked the can down the road. As well, the US Federal Reserve bailed out our Canadian banks. Something that was initially a secret, but even when it was revealed, it was not picked up by any major media outlets. And now the real estate bubble is blamed on foreign buyers instead of the destructive policies of the central bank. But the jig is up. Easy money policies can't last forever, and any attempt to prolong these artificially low interest rates will result in hyperinflation, which will amount to a complete breakdown of the US financial system, not to mention social chaos. But then again, perhaps that's the plan. The question isn't if, but when.
I want to thank my guests for joining us here today, and let's just keep in mind at home that that's what it really all boils down to, is monetary reform. I mean, doing away with the central banking systems, and as Jeff said, it's the Rothschilds. When you create the banks, you create the laws. That's really essentially what it all comes down to.